Talking Paranormal.
Right, so this week I'm joined by the legendary Dave Schrader. How are you doing, Dave?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, anytime. So I have followed you since I think it was Paranormal Challenge in about 2011.
That's right.
And I think you were involved in Ghost Adventures location scouting and stuff like that around that time or before.
Right. Yeah. After a paranormal challenge, I did, I think, 5 years of location scouting and research for Ghost Adventures behind the scenes. I've appeared on, I think, 7 or 8 of their episodes, plus I did their 2 live Halloween specials. So I've had a long standing relationship with the guys from Ghost Adventures and been thrilled to be a part of all the different projects that they've encountered and put me on.
You crop up in so many things. Like, I'll be watching a completely different show, and there you are, one episode. You seem to have your fingers everywhere.
Well, they've said I'm kind of the unofficial mayor of the paranormal, and I think I'll take that title. That's a good title to have. So, yeah, I started off, I think, first TV venture I ever had a chance to do was Paranormal State. I was in season 2, where we went UFO hunting with the kids. And then Ghost Adventures, like I said, I've been on Paranormal Hospitals. I've been on Ghost Brothers Fright Club. I've been on Screaming Room, Ghost Adventure stuff. So yeah, I show up. I'm like a bad penny. I just keep flipping over.
Yeah. So Dave, if someone doesn't know you who's watching, can you just give a brief overview? I mean, you've got your podcast going now, but just describe what you're up to, who you are.
Sure. Well, my name is Dave Schrader, and I've been kind of followed by the paranormal my whole life. I've had experiences since a very young age and have always just been in the right place at the right time. And that's bled into my career path. I've always wanted to do radio and began a radio show back in 2006 called Darkness Radio. And I just walked away from that after 16, 17 years of being a part of that. I walked away in January, took a couple months off, and rebooted with a new podcast called The Paranormal 60. I am the lead investigator on the Travel Channel Discovery Plus series, and I think out there, Really TV. I think it's the Holzer Files. I did 2 seasons of that TV series as a paranormal investigator, and then Ghosts of Devil's Perch.
Yeah, I mean, everything you do seems to do really well. I don't know if you've noticed that.
No, I don't know if 2 of my ex-wives would agree with you on that, but I try for the most part.
So paranormal talking, I've investigated myself as well. So it's going to be good to get your take and see if mine sort of matches up. But can you just give me the briefest of your early experiences? I know you saw grandparents when you were little, but I haven't actually heard you tell that story.
Yeah, my grandmother came to me when I would go to stay at my grandfather's house after she passed away. I was about 2.5, 3 years old, and my mom would come to pick me up from visiting my grandfather, and I would tell her stories of my grandmother coming to read to me and things. And I just knew things I should not know at that age. And it was enough to convince my mom that there was more to this than just a little boy dreaming of his grandma. And when she brought it to my aunt, who then admitted she'd received a phone call from my dead grandmother. And my mom and aunt were 2 very strong forces in my life. And there was always some book sitting out, Stephen King to D. Scott Rogo or Hans Holzer or the Warrens. So I was always exposed to all of this creepy stuff. And I grew up in a haunted house in Medina, Illinois. Have had many visitations at the house I grew up in and at different locations, and doing the podcast and radio show for the last 18 years now. I've put myself out there. I didn't want to just be a host that sat by and lived on everybody else's stories. So I went out and I actually started going to these locations and having these experiences and putting them to the test. And it's been an amazing experience. Bigfoot encounter when I was about 12 in Foley, Alabama, UFO encounters in 2006 at the Yaseti Ranch. So I've had a really blessed opportunity to see amazing things and be in the right place at the wrong time.
Yeah.
Or the wrong place at the right time.
Do you think you've got a gift?
Obviously, I'm sensitive to a degree. I'm not mediumistic. It's not like I can, Chris, your grandmom's coming through and she's telling me. I don't have that ability. But when you're in this as much as I am and you go to these places and you steep yourself in this, I think there's that quantum entanglement. You become part of these locations. So spirits make themselves known to you and make it a little bit easier to communicate with.
Yeah. Now you investigated with Cindy, touching on mediums there.
Mhm.
Cindy seems like a cut above every other medium. She seems, what's your experience of working with Cindy?
See, I love Cindy to death. She's like a sister to me. I've had a great relationship and friendship with her for 3 years now, almost 4 years. She certainly is very proficient at what she does. I mean, I've worked with some fantastic mediums, Michael and Marty Perry. Their website is spiritart.com. They blow me away. Chip Coffey. I'm the one that recommended Chip for the TV show Paranormal State, and opened that door for him. Chris Fleming is one of my dear friends, and he's on shows like Spooked Scotland and Spooked Ireland and Dead Famous and Help My House is Haunted. So I've seen them all do remarkable things. Cindy, I think because of the way she has used multiple facets of her gift, make her really kind of special, because she'll tap in psychically in a mediumistic way, and then if things are running aground, she'll she'll open up and start doing spirit art, or she'll open up and do automatic writing and allow spirits to find other ways if there's blockades keeping her from making those connections. So she's really great at getting into that. And but I got to tell you, even Chris, when I started working with her, I knew of her. I knew she was very well liked and respected, but we started doing these episodes of Holzer Files, and I've got this thick file folder that I've read through. She goes in and starts picking up on crazy stuff that has nothing to do with anything in the file. And I remember after, the first couple hours, I went to our director. I'm like, boy, is this going to work? She's horrible. She's not getting anything. And he's like, there's nothing in the files? No, there's nothing. Well, did you jot down notes? I go, yeah, you saw me. I kept copious notes. And he goes, okay, well, we're driving over now. We're going to talk to the historian, hit on these 3 points. And I'd hit on their questions. And then that was free to do what I do, which is be an interviewer, talk to these people. Then I would start going through my notes with Cindy, and I would ask them questions. And sometimes they'd be like, let me look that up. And boom, boom, there's the information, and it would match up. So she was tapping into layers that were deeper, that are evidential mediumship. It's giving me something that you couldn't find just by doing a quick Google search or check, because that information didn't exist. The historian had to go look the information up, and then sure as hell, and it's not fitting a round peg into a square hole. She hit it square on. She knew exactly what she was doing and what she was communicating with.
Yeah, you make a really good team, because you've got such a background in it, and Cindy's great, and you are like linked to every other paranormal person out there. I realize that.
Yeah.
I think recently, I think it was on Holzer Files, where you got shoved for the first time. I saw you stood still, and then you suddenly got shoved. And then on Devil's Perch, obviously you hit the floor like twice, and you're a big guy. It's not the sort of person you're going to be pushing around, but
yeah, that shook me. I got knocked on my butt twice during Holzer Files. Split my back open in season 2, and then had a couple of experiences. It was earth shaking for me, because I always was skeptical of the claims of, oh, I've been touched by a ghost.
Yeah,
we've all had that kind of feeling, like something brushed past us, but I've never felt the physical nature of that.
yeah,
And people sometimes get into a headspace where they're walking in a place of fear. So maybe something that barely bumped them made them feel like, oh, it shoved me, It might have barely bumped, and then they lost their footing over a bag on the floor, but they make it much more dramatic. That's why I try to keep things in check when it's happened to me. Is I stop, I collect my thoughts, think about what's going on before I say, oh, it's a demon, something's trying to kill me. I don't automatically jump to that conclusion. And sometimes I just, as you saw in Devil's Perch, I just took the spirit to task. You don't have permission to do that. I'm here to help you. So if you want help, what can I do? Don't push me. Don't shove me. Don't try to frighten people. Let's just communicate. What is there that we can do for you? And I find sometimes in standing up to the spirits and doing that, you get a better response.
Yeah, I certainly found that intention is everything. You
Right.
know, we use the Ouija board. We always have, and we open it with respect, and we
Mhm.
just talk to the spirits like, "Come on, meet us halfway. We're giving up our time. I would really appreciate if you would respectfully come and talk to us." And that's always been our ethos. We're not provokers, so that covers two things. I don't like provoking, which I do see sometimes. And why do we not see you using Ouija boards on TV?
Actually, we did use a Ouija board on TV on Holzer Files.
Oh,
Season 2, we used a Ouija board in the episode The Final Word when we were at Franklin Castle in Ohio. I'm cautious with the use of a Ouija board. To me, it's another tool. I don't feel that it's got any difference or evil intention any more than an audio recorder or a K2 meter or any other way to communicate. Um, Listen, for your viewers and listeners worldwide, the Ouija board was a popular party item for years. It didn't really get a bad rap until what, 1973 in the Exorcist movie, for
exactly.
25 seconds of on-screen time ruined the history of the Ouija board. Now, I I've told people, if I come back as a ghost, I'm going to be the kind of ghost that's going to be pushing the planchette to spell die, or pointing, could you tell us which one of us is going to die first? I'm going to be the one giggling, pushing it to my granddaughter's boyfriend, right? Because that's who I am. It doesn't mean that I'm an evil spirit, doesn't mean I'm a demon. It just might mean you've got a smart ass ghost you're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to think that those are, that option is much more viable than always believing that something demonic found its way to us. But with the Ouija board, I would use it more, but it takes a while to get moving. And TV does not have a while. They don't like waiting around. They want flashy lights and blinky things and things that make noises. I've used oh gosh, I'm trying to remember the name of the unit. It was like an electronic Ouija board. It looked like the old rotary dial phone thing on it, and it would have letters and it would rotate, but we never got any response on it. So when we used the Ouija board, I did it in a different way. And I actually told the producers, I said, hey, let's piss the viewers off. And they're like, what? And I go, I'm going to bring in a Ouija board. It's an old crystal gazer board. And he's like, why are we going to use a Ouija board? And I said, the woman complains about the fact that this place has been used for years by college students, and people have broken in and they've used Ouija boards, but nobody's ever done a closing session. So theoretically, and I contacted Karen Dahlman, who's a Ouija board historian and expert, Bob Murch, and a few others. And I said, theoretically, by setting the intention, can we go in and try to call back those spirits that might have been called forward? Can we try to help cleanse them or clear them and send them back? And they said, yeah, theoretically, why not? I mean, they've been called forward. Why not call them back? So we put the planchette down. We started pushing it ourselves in the infinity logo. And we just called upon every open session that had been left hanging. We called on every spirit that was called forward to come back and reintegrate. And we called forth God to help, and anything else that would do any good. So I wanted to get that shock and awe for the viewers of, oh my God, they're going to use a Ouija board. That's going to piss them off. But then to see we're doing something different. And like you said, it's about the intention of a situation. So my intention is always coming in a place of kindness and of light and respect. And that's what I try to bring when I have used the Ouija board. And I've let my kids use the Ouija board if I'm present.
Right.
And again, I let them do an opening and a closing when they do it. And we have to say goodbye. We have to thank the spirits, and we ask them to return. Because if I take it away from them, if I give them some taboo, they're going to do it when I'm not around.
Yeah.
And I'd at least like to teach them the proper way. So I've done it with friends that know how to use it. Karen Dahlman is, again, one of them, who's had nothing but great messages and conversations come through the Ouija board. And I also believe in empowering ourselves. We're not victims. If I'm using a Ouija board and it starts giving me bad or negative vibes, I just put the Ouija board back in its box, and I go and I put it in the closet under the game of life, just for a little irony, and walk away from it. That's the end of it. I don't feel tormented or taunted by it.
We've had zero problems, zero. Anything that comes through saying Zozo, saying demon, we've been like, okay, prove you're a demon, do something. And if they can't, and eventually it turns out it's Timmy from down the road who had a motorbike accident, and he's like, yeah, you got me. And you just got to push through the scariness. If you ran away, you would always be thinking you were haunted by some demon. But we've never really come up across that as such.
Really?
Like
and I personally, I have a hard time believing that there's a, in the hierarchy of demonology, that there's Ouija board demons. I'm not saying we can't, and I'm sure there have been people that have evoked and invoked them and brought them forward. But that's a different conversation. That's, you're setting out to do that, and you're making a collect call to the demonic realm, and you're calling on those names. And I don't repeat the names just because I don't want to give them power over me or anybody listening. So, I'm just, to me, that does. And when something starts spelling out that 4-letter name, I go, no, you're not welcome here. And I take my hands off the planchette, and I tell everybody else to take their hands off the planchette. And I say, you're not welcome here. This is a place of light and of love and of respect. And I call forth any of our guardians and angels to watch over this session, only bring forth the spirits that are lost, that are seeking answers or want help, and come with good messages. So I know there's a lot of people that are like, well, yeah, they're going to come and pretend they're light and love, and then things go horribly wrong later. And right. But Karen Dahlman has never had those problems. You've never had those problems. You start getting the negativity, you can walk away from it, and it doesn't control you. Don't allow it to control you.
Yeah, exactly. As soon as you take your finger off the glass, they don't have any control.
Right.
It's like, well,
now, with that said, one of the weirdest moments I ever had, but I have to go back to being a teenager. We were at a party at my friend's house playing light as a feather, stiff as a board. And that effectively freaked me out. That weirded me out. Then we played with the Ouija board, and we got some creepy answers. And we all stood up, and I'm like, oh, we're all just standing around the table talking. And the table's flat, the board is flat, the planchette's flat, and all of a sudden the planchette kind of wiggled and then zipped up across the table. It's the only time I've ever seen a planchette move on 's own. And it didn't just kind of slide. It zipped like somebody smacked it off the table. So, that's the only time I've ever seen anything. And that's not even negative. Maybe he was like, fine, you don't want to talk to me, I don't want to talk to you either.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, we've had spirits push the glass off the board and stuff, but then it's like, if you don't want to talk to us, don't move the planchette. As long as you keep moving the planchette, we will keep asking you questions.
Right, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, our findings about the spirit world have been agreed upon by all the spirits we've asked. We once stumbled upon like reincarnation questions, and they all agree that we reincarnate 7 times, having 8 existences on Earth. Now, it's like, you would think you would get different answer. One spirit would say, no, that's not right. But they all agree on that. And so there's that other side, they tell us, which may be the normal zone. We think of life and living as being the norm, and the afterlife as being a weird paradox. But really, they say that the afterlife is the norm, and we come back on purpose to live and learn and try and overcome obstacles in life to progress our soul. This is what the spirits have told us. They even give us colours of our aura or whatever. They say that we have these lights shining off us that also equate to how much we've ascended in these levels.
Very cool. Boy, yeah. See, I'd love to be able to be a part of a session like that with people that know what they're doing and see what comes through. Now, the skeptical side of me also believes in the ideomotor ability, that we are moving that. And if your belief system fits into that 7-layer realm, no matter where you go, or you can always get that answer because that's already part of who you are.
I will never say that we don't move the glass. I've done experiments with deck of cards on top, and the top card, which we push, always moves first. Now, the next phase of that is, if I can accept that, not a problem. But the information that comes through the board that we don't know is always miraculous, right, even though we're moving that. So they must be moving us in some way. They found lost keys for us. They took us to a random ruined farmhouse, a bedroom full of books, and said, get my red diary. It's in that room, it's in that corner. You go and you find it, and like, we didn't know that.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing stuff.
I don't care that you say, anyone says that we move the planchette. I'm like, yes, I agree, we do. But something spiritual moves that for us, you know?
I would love, I've only had this happen at one location, and it was at the Whaley house where I was knocked on the ground. I would love to be able to access diaries of former inhabitants of haunted homes. Um, prior to their, the famous hauntings of, oh, this family was murdered there, we believe it was this. Did anybody else living there experience that? And it would be interesting because in the Whaleys, handwritten letters to one another, and this is something that we uncovered in the Holzer files that nobody had talked about before because the letters only came to light a few years before our show, and they'd never shown it to anybody. But there were letters between Mrs. and Mr. Whaley. She would be in Chicago or New York, and he would be at home, and or vice versa. And she would write things like, "There are things going on. We're not alone in this home. I know, but we shan't talk about it any further." Right. So it was like, let's not give it any more attention. He would talk about being home, and he would quickly get home after doing a day's worth of work, grab his food, and go up to his room where he would shut and lock himself in because of the activity that was taking place in the house. But I wish that they were a little more detailed, because wouldn't it be fascinating, Chris, if the detailing of if you got that diary and you read through that diary and she starts talking about this guy, Chris, who's coming through the Ouija board to her in 1812 or something, right? Wouldn't it be interesting to see who's haunting who? Who's influencing who? Is this a ripple in time? Is this really a dead person? Is it just a consciousness? Are we tapping into that global internet, the worldwide mental web, where we're just getting the information? It's not really a ghost. It's like a hologram of that individual.
You've spoke about the old lady sat in a chair being visited by three shadows. Do you know the one? Can you just do our viewers, please?
Yeah, well, people love that story. It's become my favorite too. That's another one of those moments of time slip phenomena. This guy told me, he goes, straight up, my grandparents bought an old cornfield. They built their house there. My grandfather was part of the building crew. There was no ancient Indian burial grounds. There were no wars on this piece of land. There was nothing that would have equated to a haunting. And they built that house and lived in that house for 30, 40 years. Nothing ever happened. And then one day, grandma is sitting in her chair in the living room watching Jeopardy or whatever it was. And in walk these three shadowy figures, and they stop in front of her chair, and then they run out of the room. Now grandma's house is haunted. She's not crazy. She's not senile. So she tells you this experience. Now everybody starts listening a little bit more closely, and they start noticing and hearing things. But those things may have always existed before. They just weren't as acutely aware. We become nose blind to smells. We probably become awareness blind to other situations. This guy goes, here's the weird part of the story. My grandmother dies. A couple of years later, my buddies and I are going to go over there. We're going to watch some TV. We walk into the living room, and there, in my grandmother's old chair, is my grandmother sitting there staring at us. The three of us looked at each other, turned around, and ran out of the room. And I stopped and I went, "Oh my God. Oh my God, this is exactly what my grandmother's." And they went back in and she was gone.
Yeah.
But there was that one brief moment when time touched, and you could see through that veil, not clearly, but you could see through that veil. And isn't it interesting that from the future they could see her clearly, but her viewing the future was a black blur as opposed to a ghost? So maybe the shadowy figures that we see in locations, and I'm just putting this together for the first time right now, maybe the shadowy dark figures are future selves, are future people in that that we're encountering, and the visual perspectives are the ones of the people that used to live there. So it's just an interesting element of how is it that we see these things and how they're put through. I've often wondered, maybe we only see shadowy figures at the end of their spiritual existence in that plane, that eventually they do fade out, and that's all that's left of them is that shadow. But some people talk about how concentrated and deep and dark that shadow is. Well, maybe the reason we can't fully see it is because we're getting an image of the future, but it's not an image that's fully realized yet.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, we're never going to understand how it works, I don't think. It seems like you'll have had the same thing as me. Things 15 years ago, ideas of spirit world and how they work have changed. You and I have both
Right.
sound defy physics, where you can listen to an EVP, you've played it back, and then it's gone. And you're like, what? We've had footsteps up stairs from a cellar, okay, that 2 of our team have heard the 12 footsteps. I had a dictaphone on that staircase and only heard 1 footstep. And it's like, that recorded the room. How have I only got 1 step and you all heard 12? You know, we had repetition of like piano tinkling. You walk past a piano, you do a little playful tinkle. An hour later, you hear that tinkle again, and it's like exactly how you did it. Time and sound, it's just weird.
Right. And is it mocking you? Is it playing back to get your attention? Or are you catching a reverberation, an echo of what you did earlier? That's a fascinating element to this, right? And who we can't tell yet specifically what is it that we're encountering and how is it playing its way into our world. Time is not linear, right? Science talks about that. Quantum physics talks about that. And something else I've just started to realize when we talk about quantum physics and we talk about the entanglement theory, right? Spooky action at a distance. Here's an interesting thing. Chris and Dave go put themselves in the haunted basement of Buckingham Palace, right? Steep headless ghosts are seen there. Anne Boleyn is seen weeping in the corner. Just whatever kind of stories are there, right? We've been there. We've been there for the activity. Does this make us bound to that by physics? Do we become quantum entangled in that environment? Are we now effectively messing up the perspective of what we're seeing and experiencing because we're now another onion layer over that piece? So it's just, to me, there's so many different aspects of this that are fascinating that I don't know, Chris, honestly, today I can't tell you. I'm talking to a person whose body dropped and their soul stood up and is now talking to me. I don't know that that's what a ghost is.
No.
I don't know that there's any one answer for what a ghost is.
Yeah, you hear some of the things that people report, and there's a huge range of things from I felt a spirit but didn't see it. I saw them clear as day. You know, I've had people hear their father ring them up and say, "Hey, boy," or one of my guests had his dad come through over the phone. He was dead. He's like, the phone rings. So it does seem like, as you say, quantum entanglement, quantum physics shows that everything happens at once, everything that can possibly happen, you know, in different multiverses, so to speak, so that there is no one answer. Yeah, you are both in your past and you are both in your future. And that's what this world is. It's a world of vibration and energy, and it's all about your perspective, looking out of your viewpoint. It's just beyond us, and yet we continue to be fascinated by it, because those of us like me and you and people who are into ghost hunting, we are curiosity finders. You know, we want to unpick reality, whereas some people just blinkered. They say, ghosts aren't real, I'm not interested. You know, why do we spend our time looking at what happens after you're dead? Why don't we just wait till you're dead and stop wasting this life?
Because for that very reason, though, because we are an exploring being, right? We push the boundaries. We came out of the caves, right? We entered the world. We saw beyond the plains in front of us, and we started to create buildings and structures and bridges and castles and skyscrapers. And we've traveled to the bottoms of the ocean and to the moon. And now, further than anywhere else, we've gone way out into space with the Voyager. So we are an exploring being. I don't want to say race because that means the human race. I think aliens are doing the same thing. We are beings that are exploring beyond our world. Why are we so fascinated? This is what I love about the paranormal field. And gay, straight, white, black, Christian, Wiccan, doesn't matter. The one great evening playing field is death. We all are going to find death. And we're all curious as to what comes next. Even the atheists. Now, they may say, well, what am I going to worry about? But even Ricky Gervais is like, yeah, I would love to believe something else is after this, but it isn't. But they still would like it. Michael Shermer is the same thing. Joe Nickel is the same guy. They would love to believe something goes beyond this, but that's where their imagination stops.
Yeah.
And they would rather focus on the here and the now and challenge their minds in other ways. And that's great. We need people that are willing to do that. But death and the afterlife is the great equalizer. It's something that I wish people could see that above politics and sexuality and financial position in life and just realize, see, this is one race. It's the human race. This is all we're a part of. And if we could boil it down to that and then work our way back, deconstruct, we're all interested in that same element. Maybe we're not as far apart as we think in every other element, right?
Yeah.
And we just have to find common ground. That's why I love the paranormal. I will go and I will see people of every race, color, sexuality, belief system, religion, and they can all sit in the same room together and not shake their fist in righteous indignation at, no, Mother Earth is the only God. No, the Lord in heaven. No, Buddha is the only, no, Muhammad is the only. We're not, there's no, it's, what do you have to say? What do you have to share? That's interesting. You know, there's similarities to that in my religion.
Yeah.
And that's interesting that I didn't know that element of Christianity or that element of Hinduism or Buddhism or whatever ism people believe in. And that doesn't mean that it takes it away from how important their religion is to them, but it should show you that we're closer than we give each other credit for.
Yeah.
Because the common thread through most of those religions are the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same structure, isn't it? It's the same at heart structure of being a good guy and attaining some reward.
Right.
And I think that, again, if the spirits are right, what they've told us, and they did say Hinduism is the closest religion, which is big on reincarnation and attainment of a better soul, then yeah, we seem to choose a life, be it disabled, be it black, white, whatever, man, woman, you come back and you choose to take the test. This is the test, you know? Now, do people come back with stains? Like I was born miserable. I was miserable for years when I was a kid. I've overcome that. But was that a stain? Was my deep fear of water a stain from a previous life? Have I drowned? I look at pictures of deep water and I feel like I'm sinking into it. I just feel like I'm having a memory. That's not me. I stay away from water. Because did I die in water? You know, can you really get mind wiped when you come back here if that is how it works?
Well, and in those elements, is it, we also have to ask, you grew up watching the same shows I grew up watching and the same movies and Titanic and the Poseidon Adventure and Jaws. Why wouldn't we be afraid of water, right? It's an inherent thing. It's okay to have a healthy fear of things that are powerful, right? People are like, you're so stupid to have a fear of snakes. No, there are snakes that can bite you, inject poison in you, and kill you. There are snakes that can wrap around you, constrict you, and eat you whole. I'm not stupid to fear snakes, but I have a healthy respect for those beings, right? But I try not to live in a place of fear anymore of those elements. And who isn't afraid of haunted places? I got to tell you, when I first started doing this and going into these haunted spots, my stomach was in knots as I'm walking down the hall. And I was like, but I'm going to do this. I'm going to put myself through this. I'm going to see and witness if this is just a big old drafty, empty, shadowy building, or is there something here? And even at my age, I've been doing this since I was 38 actively. I'm just turned 55. I still get that kind of butt pucker when I get into a creepy, dark place. It's got a crazy history. And you're like, am I really ready to do this? And I go walking through and, you know, you hear things and footsteps and things that really aren't terrifying, right? When you boil it down, if I'm in a place by myself and I start hearing footsteps, my heart rate starts going. My breath starts catching in my chest, but it's footsteps. It's not maniacal laughter. It's not, I'm going to get you, Dave Schrader. It's nothing of that ilk, but yet we still have that fear. We fear the unknown. We fear the possibilities. I was just talking to my son today and I said, you know, the one thing is about fear, look at the worst case scenario. Just look at it right now. All right. I just start dating this woman, right? What's the worst thing that could happen? She sleeps with my brother or marries my stepdad, right? That's probably the worst possible thing I could think of that she's going to do. All right. Now that I've seen that that's the worst, I'll just accept life and move forward and no longer fear that. Just make sure that I do my best to have a healthy relationship so that she doesn't find an interest in my brother or my stepdad, right? You just
Yeah.
that makes you more spatially aware of your situation. And I think it's okay to look at fear and have fear, but understand what fear means and what is the worst possible outcome. And if you're okay with the idea, I might go into this building and I might fall down a flight of stairs, but I might see something that proves to me the existence outside of our physical body. That's worth the gamble for me. The juice is worth the squeeze. And then we go in and do it.
Yeah, that's certainly my theory. My sister will say, how can you walk down that cellar with no fear to get your equipment? I'm like, because the 100 times I've done it, nothing's ever happened.
Right.
You know, I know you think it's scary because what if? I'm like, no, I'm not afraid of what if. I'm afraid of, well, what has happened? Nothing ever. You know? So yeah, I don't think of what might happen. I think, well, nothing has happened. So until it does, but then it's only recently, because Dave, I've got to explain that when I got into this, I mean, I've always been through it for a child, but when I actually got off the couch and went hunting,
Right.
it was like the idiomotor effect. It's ghost teams are just conning you. Your brain is formed to look at pareidolia and things. So I was ready to shoot it all down, and I couldn't do it. You know, it didn't work. So here we are, 12 years later, and only in the last couple of years have I started getting bangs on things. When I ask for a noise, it's not just the cooling of a building anymore that I'm having to dismiss. I'm getting raps that make me jump out of my seat. I'm like, right, it's things are finally answering me because maybe there's a relationship starting between us and the spirit world. The spirits say that they know we were coming before we even get there through the board. And I don't know if you have picked up friend ghosts along the way like we have.
I, again, not being mediumistic, and anybody that's listening to your show that's heard me on other shows or on my own, probably getting bored with this answer, but I'm not mediumistic, so I can't turn around and go, oh, look, it's the ghost from Waverly Hills. What are you doing here, you silly goose? Go back to Waverly Hills. I have no way of knowing what ghost I've got with me. I have no idea where they came from because I can't always see them. And when I do see them, they may not be the same ghost I saw when I was at Waverly. So it's impossible for me to say this. I'm also very cautious. I'm loving and caring. When I leave a location, I say, and for any of your audience that are easily triggered by Christianity, at forefront, I'm Christian. This is my belief system. This is just what I do. Lord, I just ask that you come through this building and bless it in the blood of Jesus Christ. I ask that you move through here with the Holy Spirit, find any spirits that are lost or forgotten, spirits that have lost their way. And I ask that you open that light and bring forth their friends, their relatives, their loved ones, their pets, and help them ease into that transition of moving on to the next stage. Lord, I just ask that any spirits that elect to stay here, you bind them in a thorny hedge of protection to keep them from doing harm to the living. We pray this in your name. Amen. And I do a similar prayer before I even walk in my door after doing an investigation to clear my energy. I call back my energy, my brain, my soul, my heart, my mind, my emotions. These are mine. And anything that is not of me must stay outside. And I do these prayers to try to stave that off. We've had experiences in our house, but we've always treated them with respect and kindness, and then they're gone. So I've never felt threatened. I was just doing my show the other night, and as I'm sitting here in my studio and I'm talking, very clearly a head poked around the corner and looked right at me.
Yeah.
Now, my birthday could have been my mom just checking in on me, and when I turned, the head was gone. But I could very clearly, not just kind of something faint out of the corner of the eye, I could very clearly see somebody leaning around the corner and look at me. Everybody was accounted for. There was nobody in this area. So there was never a threat.
No.
There was never anything strange other than it was a little alarming. But, then I set the goals, leave my children alone. If you want to communicate with me and me alone, and, but I don't investigate my home, and I won't try to communicate with you here other than this conversation that I'm having right now. So if you want to communicate with me when I go somewhere else, but you don't have the right to be here if you want to coexist, but do not disrupt my family. And that's kind of just what we've always done. And my kids would come to me and, I think we might have a ghost, Dad. This is okay. And then I'll do a prayer in the house. But nobody ever comes to me, Dad, I'm terrified. I think something's trying to kill me. It's never been one of those moments. So and whenever they do have that fear, we talk about it. And sometimes it's, are you really afraid, or were you just more shocked? Well, I guess I was more shocked. Okay, right. And did this thing threaten you? No. Just I heard it. Okay. Did it say something threatening? No. What did it say? It just said my name. Okay, maybe, pardon me, maybe it's an old friend passing through. Just wanted you to know I'm thinking of you, Pacey. Maybe it's a friend somewhere at home right now in the twilight between sleep and awake. And as they're falling asleep, they think your name and they project it to you and you hear it. There's a million things that it could be. Let's not give it the power that it's something dark and evil and malevolent. Well, you're right. I didn't feel it was. Okay. And then we're okay. It's just, it's in having the respect and kindness in the heart of dealing with these spirits. And just, I even say when I go into a location, I'm not really there for the living. I'm not there to help you, Chris. I'm not there to give you answers. I'm there to try to help the spirits because there's obviously something wrong. And you're a symptom of the root cause. So let's get to the root cause and try to cure that. Yeah. Does that make sense? And I don't mean that dismissively of the living.
I think I feel the same. And when we go to houses, the families are terrified because there's what is it? It's a question mark. Does it mean bad things? It's generally their family. And the family's gone from touching them, sort of waving at them, not being seen, to moving their car keys, moving things around, to then trying to fully form in front of them as a black shadow. And it's like, it's your gran, it's right. It's not threatening. Or the ones that aren't that, like you say, the previous residents, and this certain window was opening in a house, and the previous tenant would always have that window open. It was just one of those things they did, and that's why they were messing with that window still. They lived in the same house with this spirit, and it just wanted to have that window open. And once you put something like that, or a totem or something to remember that spirit by, everything ceases. It all goes back to being fine.
We also have to give credit to the location. I think locations are living, breathing entities. Your house is a part of your family. The place that you live in is a part of you, right? And if that window used to be open all the time, maybe its muscle memory is to open. Maybe it's the house doing it, which is no less remarkable. But maybe it has nothing to do with Uncle Joe who liked the window open. Maybe it has strictly to do with the house. I miss Uncle Joe too. And this reminds me of Uncle Joe, and it just opens the window on its own. Everything has an energy. Everything is alive to a degree. And science is realizing that now. There's been articles in the last 2 years talking about, we think inanimate objects may have consciousness.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why people that talk to their food, talk to their drink, talk to their water, you can talk to ice as it's freezing. And if you're caustic and you're stupid ice and you're the worst ice, it gets all fractal and crazy looking spider webby inside. And then the ones that look at how beautiful you are. You are such glistening, gorgeous ice. They've got these beautiful, clear crystal ice cubes. If we can affect water with our attitude, imagine how we're destroying each other with the horrible things we say and do. And look, here's a visualization. Talk to your plant lovingly. The plant flourishes. Talk to the plant with hatred, things like that. It dies. But then you've got people who've played Neil Diamond for their plant and it dies. And you've got people that played, guar for their plant and the plant thrives. Maybe the plant just happens to love guar, right? That's the music that resonates with it. Yeah. So everything has its thing. Everything has its energy. Our deal is hopefully trying to find out how to resonate with those energies.
And I think the positive vibe thing, just the intention, is when you get listeners ringing in and you'll hear them say, we were messing about on a Ouija board. Like, you're messing about. Your intention was to mess about. And we've only just recently had dealings with spirit, and they taught us a lesson. They were sort of saying this: the pentagrams you're wearing on your band T-shirts are bad. The symbols have power, is what the Ouija board spelled out. And if we're walking into a location, and we would love the evidence of being pushed like you were, or scratched, And so the moments when we're saying,
You say that till it happens, yeah.
yeah, but that's the point, that we've changed that because the spirits say that is in its sense not respectful. If I wouldn't walk into your house, Dave, and say, thanks for letting me in, and you can punch me in the face if you like. It's a weird thing to say to a spirit. You can scratch us if you want. They're like, why the hell would I?
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
What kind of weird S&M are you into? Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, so no, we don't do that. We don't. Even that is kind of a provocative statement. You know.
That's why I tell people they need to educate themselves on things in all elements of the paranormal before they become investigators. This isn't something we should stumble through because we can cause real problems.
Yeah.
You bring up the pentagram on the shirts, right? I want you to look at the perspective. Okay, a pentagram is actually this, right? A pentagram is the upside down circle, or a circle with an upside down star in it.
Mm.
This is a pentacle. A pentacle is a circle with a right side up star in it. So if I'm wearing a shirt with a pentacle on it so that I can see it, it's hanging upside down to you, but to me, I see the pentacle. It's again your intention and manifestation. If I'm wearing this because, yeah, hail Satan, yeah, then that's your intention. That's your manifestation. But if I see this as a pentacle and something of protection, that's amazing. You know, there's another symbol that we've grown to hate and despise, and as soon as people see it, right? As soon as people see the symbol of the swastika, it becomes, oh my God, you're immediately judged.
Yeah.
That's a Native American symbol for, I believe it's prosperity.
Okay.
And it's flipped. It's on a different angle.
Yeah.
So it's in the perspective and the intention to which something is delivered to you, right? So I think that a lot of times, again, then we start going back into living in a place of fear, living in a place where, if that's what's drawing you, if you just want to go to a haunted place to get scared, this isn't the right path for you.
Yeah.
Go to a haunted location like Mansfield Reformatory or Lepp Castle or Chillingham Castle, where they allow you to go in and interact with their spirits, right? And do your thing. Don't go into somebody's home to bring help if you walk in a place of fear.
Yeah.
Because then you're just inviting trouble in.
So you use a specific EVP dictaphone recorder. It seems like it's a really old one.
Yes.
What is the deal? Is it tape led or is it digital?
It's digital. It's one of the very first of the digital dictaphone recorders. It was the Panasonic DDR60, I believe is what it's called. You're going to go look it up on something like eBay and your stomach's going to hit the ground.
Yeah, one of those. That's your fault.
They're about $1,000 to $3,000 a piece.
Yeah.
Because they do get really interesting EVP.
Okay.
When they were originally released, people were returning them because, well, I'm picking up other voices. Oh, well, its shielding is not great. We're getting some stray radio.
Yeah.
Then their second answer was, oh, you're just getting the recording of the internal mechanisms.
Yeah.
Which, if it was an analog tape, like the old cassette, I would buy that because the of the recorder would do that. There's nothing going in a digital recorder. So when I got it, I was very skeptical of it. Very skeptical that this was truly going to do what everybody claimed it did. So I tried it. I tried it in my hotel room. When I got it, it was sent to me for my friend Kimberly. She said, as long as you have a TV show, you can use my DR60 because I don't really ghost hunt anymore. So I've taken this gift with whole heart and love, and I used it. But I got it in my hotel room. I did a couple recordings. I got nothing. I didn't get I didn't get voices. I didn't get stray radio frequency. So after about the third EVP session, I go, do you know my name? Do you know why I'm here? Blah, blah. And I play it back and said, do you know my name? And this voice very, very clearly goes, Dave. And I'm like, holy hell, what? I called Shane down. I'm like, Shane, listen to this. I was first time using this. I hit the wrong button and erased it. After he'd heard it, he goes, do another one. I want to watch you do it. I think you did that. So I did another one. And I said, all right, we tried again. I thought I heard something, but I'm not sure. Can you say my name? Can you say Dave? And very clearly, this voice just goes and laughs at me. Like, what the hell? I'm not your monkey, you know. I'm not here to entertain. And Shane was like, "What the hell was that?" Right? And so it's a cool recorder. I've used it and I've bonded with it. I think if you bond with your equipment, you start getting better results. I have 7, 8 different recorders. I use one, my Panasonic DR60.
Yeah.
I used to have a good one. I had and I don't believe you need these super expensive recorders. As a matter of fact, maybe the reason that you put your recorder out and only got one footstep was that the recorder, some of these smart recorders now, they will analyze things and remove them from the recording. Well, you're obviously not recording footsteps, you're recording voices. So we're going to take out those noises, or we're going to change the elevation of the floor sound. And the smart recorders that hear, "Help me, Chris, help," they look at it as an artifact. Oh, that must be like a fan turning on, and it takes it out.
Yeah.
And that may be why you play it once or twice and you hear it, and you play it a third time and it's gone, because the recorder may have taken it out. So I like older recorders. I used to have a Kobe, and that was my go-to recorder until I broke it. Loved it, and I used to get crazy EVP on it. Crazy EVP. I loved it. But I just don't think you need the super expensive ones. The nice thing is, with the super expensive ones, when you get an EVP, 99 times out of 100, they're Class A EVP. But I'm just cautious. When I get an EVP, if I can't make out exactly what it's saying, I throw away the evidence.
Yeah.
You know, if it's blah, 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 and you said, "Dave, it said, I like pineapple vodka." That's not what I heard. I heard, "I like Captain Crunch." No, Dave, it's definitely, "I like pineapple vodka." And you play it back and somebody else goes, "No, guys, it says spaghetti as every Tuesday." It's not worth keeping, because then it's pareidolia. Your brains are just trying to make sense of distortion.
Yeah.
So I'm very skeptical of what I do and how I collect my evidence as well, and what evidence I'm willing to present.
Well, a lot of the ones on TV, unfortunately, I know when I've tried to broadcast my own recordings,
Right.
they don't come across very well, you know? So you really, like when I'm watching you, you might get 2 words. I'll shut my eyes until I don't want to read the things. I'm shut and think, what does it say? You know, and sometimes it is just garbled, but I trust that you hear what you say you're hearing, you know, because it doesn't always come across the telly sort of thing.
Right, because a lot of times you're playing the recorder, which is, 2.5 inches tall by 1.5 inches side to side,
Yeah.
and a speaker that was made in 1992, right?
Yeah.
And it's a crap little recorder, and I'm holding it up to another microphone who's trying to, again, is a digitally enhanced microphone, and you think, oh, it's going to really pick it up clearly, and it is not. It's actually trying to clean and clear the distortion, and that blows it out and make it even sound worse.
Yeah.
Sometimes just by hearing it on the recorder, it's very clearly saying, "Stop, don't send them to heaven." And you hold it up and you listen back to the recording, you're like, wow, that's really muddy. So sometimes they have to take the recording directly off my recorder another way and inject it into the episode, because it was so blown out by the nice cameras and nice microphones, it couldn't pick it up.
Yeah.
So you're right. There is a lot of fidelity lost.
Absolutely.
And then unfortunately, TV also has a penchant for playing music at the stupidest times.
Yes.
And I don't want to hear music as I'm starting to play my EVP, but and trust me, this is a complaint every one of us on every one of these shows has made to our production company, but music still plays. So,
well, Dave, I can't have you on without touching on this. I'm going to be very gentle about this. The way that 28 days later, you had Shane on your program, and you were saying, there's a bit of a backlash. You were saying some people are giving it a bit of grief. Okay, so we have been to places where Most Haunted in England is our big program, and we've been to places where they've been, and when, delicately I must say, when we've asked the owners, they've said, "Oh, the production team were responsible for this, this, and this," because it's a TV program, and so not everything is genuine because it's a TV program. I know you're genuine. I get that feeling, but is it right that in some clauses on your contracts, it's like production has the right to mess with certain things and give the program?
Is it right? No, but that's part of what you give when you go to do a TV show. But what the difference was, like on Holzer Files, Shane and I said, and I told him up front, listen, guys, I I'm not an orb guy. You're never going to convince me an orb is a ghost. If you suddenly are showing orbs as my evidence, and I've been spending 13, 14 years on the radio telling people how it's not, nobody's going to trust a word I say because it's going to come across as disingenuous or you're making me say it. And they're like,
Yeah.
we'd never make you say it. We also got the right to take the evidence. So we collected the audio. We took the chips out of all the cameras. Shane would go in and then watch all of it. And then he'd call me to the room on occasion. Is this worth showing? Nah, dude, that's definitely a shadow from, the sound guy. Because if you look, as soon as he turns real quick, you see the microphone. Oh, yeah, you're right. So they gave us the right to review that evidence first. In Ghost to Devil's Perch, you notice there is no evidence review. There's no, we go in and investigate, then go back, review our evidence, and then show it to somebody. We catch it in the moment, we play it. So that way there was nothing altering our situation.
Yeah.
And we kept an eye on it. And there were times you'd hear, and we'd all turn our head. And I'd be like, who is that? And you'd find out it's one of the PAs tripped on the stair. And they wouldn't use it. Or they use it to cut away at a commercial. And then they come back from the commercial and we're like, that was nothing.
Yes.
And we move on.
Yeah.
Right. So there are those elements, but it was just, and that's just working on the shows I've been on. I cannot say on Paranormal State what you saw is exactly what happened in the episode I was there. On Ghost Adventures, the parts I'm a part of is exactly what I saw go down in the way it went down. I can't affirm or attest anything beyond what I've been privy to.
Yeah.
Paranormal Challenge, same thing. And then doing Ghost and Devil's Perch and the Holzer Files. So are there elements of production mucking about? Shane, Cindy, and myself put our feet down. This is our career. To you, you get to move on and make a new TV show. This screws with our livelihood. And if you're faking evidence and we catch you faking evidence, as a team, we're walking. And they're like, nope, you do what you do.
Yeah.
That's what I loved about both seasons. Nobody forced us to say demon. No,
yeah.
They'd say, can you, Dave? Most teams would think this is something demonic, right? Can you at least allude to that so that we don't already solve the puzzle in the first 20 seconds of this investigation? Can you say, man, that was creepy. That was a demonic-like sound. I'm not asking you to say definitively it's a demon.
Yeah.
But let's at least throw out the concept. And I'd be like, okay, I'll throw out the concept and I'd make a comment about it because I get it. That's the entertainment value of it. But very rare. And there were a couple times I was like, is that that was pretty demonic. That was weird. That was really weird. And I'm really uncomfortable. But then they allowed me to process it. And then I'd say, no, when I got knocked down in the Whaley house, that wasn't a demon. That's the ghost of Juan Verdugo. Juan was a hero to his people, not because he was a bloodthirsty animal, but because he stood up for him and his people. And he said, I'm taking back what was ours. Why do the English think that this is theirs just because they claim it? We're going to take it back. And they got caught and they got killed. So of course he's pissed off because not only did he lose his stuff, he stood up to try to take it back and was killed because of it. And now we're calling him out for the first time in 150 years. He has every right to be pissed.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we showed respect. We showed respect and we showed love and we got our answers. And because of that, they never had another situation like that afterwards and I've talked to the people that ran it. I don't know. There's a new group running it now and we haven't spoken to them, but for year and a half, 2 years afterwards, they didn't have any of those kind of more dark, malevolent moments.
Yeah.
Right. So it's interesting that that's how it plays out, but we were never forced to say that. I was not there for the filming of 28 Days Later or 28 Days Haunted. I did. You'll see that I appear in the credits as a consultant, and that would be from time to time. Our production company for Ghost of the Devil's Perch is the same production company that did 28 Days Haunted.
Yeah.
And from time to time, they would reach out to me and they'd go, hey, the team caught this. Is there a theory behind how something like this would take place? And I'd say, well, this would be my thought. And then they would take that and flesh it out a little bit. Or I also suggested people for the show because they were trying to piecemeal it together. And I recommended people. So that's how I kind of became a consultant. But that was the end of my trip. I was never on site. I would like to think nothing was faked. and that what their experiences were very real, but I cannot speak to that with
No.
any confidence because I wasn't there. But it's the same company I worked with for Devil's Perch, but we had a whole different set of directors, runners, PAs, everything. I don't think that they would do that.
Well,
But again, I'm not there.
The owner of the Lumber Baron said, well, they found a piece of paper in my cellar, which I know was meant to be really old. It was nicely clean and folded. And she said that the production planted that. Now, I'm not saying that Shane or anything new, but production, that's their job, isn't it? To push and nudge the investigators in the right way for the conclusion. So I understand it. I'm just saying that everyone out on this side of the screen is now starting to understand that, it is a TV show.
Now, can I ask, Chris, and I don't mean to be ignorant on this.
Yeah.
Where did the owner say this? Where is it that they specifically said that this took place?
It's on a podcast, a ghost podcast called Something Spookish, and the girls stayed, went to the premiere actually at the Lumber Baron of 28 Days Haunted, and they interviewed the owner, and she obviously gave a long thing of how great Shane and everybody were, but they were saying that was definitely production.
Well, that's interesting. I know that the contracts we sign are this thick and they're non-disclosures. I can't speak to it because I wasn't there. I don't know what's going on. It's interesting to me that an owner would put themselves on the line for a possible lawsuit by saying something like that. That's why I'm asking, because I've heard a lot of people go, oh yeah, the owners of this place come out and say it. And then I've talked to the owners and they're like, I never said that at all. I was never there. And I'm like, yeah. So it's cool that she actually did it and it's recorded and out there.
Yeah.
But I can't attest to it. And I'm sure if Shane and Ray found out that it was planted, it would piss them off.
Yeah.
And
I get that.
yeah, I don't know. And I don't know what was put in for storytelling. It's tough to say. I would say out of my heart of hearts, I love Shane like a brother. I have no belief system in me at all that he would have been a part of that. And if he found something, right? Oh, no, I know. I'm just saying though. I mean, I would say that would be my perspective on it, because I know how protective we both were of each other and how this all goes down. And if we ever smelled anything funny, we talked to the directors and we talked to producers, and they would assure us, dude, you're the only one in there. Here's the cameras from outside the building. There's nobody walking around. Yeah. Timestamps match up with when you're in there. Nobody knocking on the front door when you're hearing the knocking on the front door. That we've got it all. So it's interesting, but I've heard the same thing about production companies. I've heard the same thing about every one of the paranormal shows, but I can tell you, I've been there for Ghost Adventures and Paranormal State and Paranormal Challenge. Yeah. I never once saw anything hinky. Sometimes we would capture something that we got all excited about, only to find out the next day, Dave, we can't use that piece of footage because turns out that the production assistant turned the fan on, and that's why that sheet started blowing. And you can't hear the fan because it's in that other room, but the door was open, and that's why we're picking up the movement in the hall. All right, thanks a lot. So that's what they were. And there were times they could have played that because we had no idea. They could have easily played that as a piece of evidence.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a tough call.
Well, Dave, you've got your integrity intact anyway. You know what I mean? You were one of the people I trust absolutely the most.
Thank you.
So cryptids. Do you have a cryptid? Have you got time? It's 1 hour, 1 hour, 4 minutes. Have you got time to tell me?
Yeah, that's fine. I wish I could be more compelling about this. I was very young. I was about, and I got to say now at this age, 10 to 12 years old. I don't even remember specifically what year, because every year we would go around this time of year to Alabama to visit my grandparents, and they all just kind of bleed into each other. When you're a kid, I'm pretty positive I was somewhere between 10 and 12 years old. So it would have been between 78 or 77 and 78 in that area. Probably like 78, I would say probably the best pick for me. And I was there. My grandparents owned 40 acres, but only 10 of it was livable. The rest was just wilds, right? And they had a pond. My grandfather would stock the pond and we would fish, and, he was like a Dr. Dolittle. Animals loved him. He would literally go outside. Squirrels and rabbits would come up to him and he'd feed them with stuff he had in his pockets, and it was amazing. So we're out there fishing one day, my cousin and I, and we hear this something big walking around in the woods. The two of us kind of side eye, we're looking at each other like, what is that? And then it's getting closer and closer to the back of the pond, which is maybe 75 yards, 100, I don't even know. It was close enough that I could see the end of the pond clearly. And one of the bushes starts to move.
Right.
And then this big hairy hand comes up over the top of the bush and pushes it down. And now I can see from just below the nose up. And it's this dark inset face with this big bouffanty kind of Barry Gibb hair, right? But it was kind of grayish black. And it just pushed down, and it had hair over the top of its hand, like almost like Chewbacca. Pushed it down and looked at us. And you have that moment where you're looking at it and your brain is broken. You're just like, what do you think that is? And I remember looking at my cousin, and he looked at me, and we looked back at this thing, and then the fight or flight kicked in, and we just turned and ran. And in the back of my head, it's my dad or it's my uncle, and they're out there screwing with us. We run in the house. There's my dad and uncle sitting on the couch reading. There's my grandfather cooking. There's my grandmother reading. Everybody's accounted for, and we were freaked out. They all ran, grabbed their guns, went outside to go check. Maybe it's a bear. Maybe it's these kids don't know what they're seeing. We just saw some giant, hairy creature. That's as close as I got to it. My grandparents swore that they had UFO activity over their property, large cryptid creatures. I mean, they never called them cryptid at the time, but they firmly believed in Bigfoot. And my grandfather, being who he was, Dr. Doolittle, feeding animals all the time, I could see him leaving stuff out there and this thing coming to eat it. And, very easily. So they had a firm belief in the paranormal and the supernatural element of creatures. So I think that was definitely a Bigfoot encounter, but I never got up close enough to see it, smell it, hear it. It didn't grunt it, but it definitely did not look human to me.
That's fantastic. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Dave, absolute honor to have had you on and speak to you.
Yeah, thank you.
And great luck with the podcast and everything you do. Thank
you. I appreciate it. And for your followers, they can keep up with me at paranormal60.com. See what I'm up to. I do events all over. I'm going to be out in the UK this year. And I'm going to be doing a conference out there. What is it? The Festival of the Unexplained, or one of the, I'm so bad with names off the top of my head, but if you go to darknessevents.com, you can see where I'm going to be this year. And I'm going to be at a couple different conferences in different parts of the world. And I hope that you and your listeners will come on out and see me and hang out and get a chance to talk. And I'm giving away free hugs. So wherever I'm at, come out and see me and get a picture and a free hug.
Yeah, because you were doing Loch Ness recently, weren't you, as well?
Oh, yeah. Yep, we just did that. I did Ireland twice this year and Scotland once. I love getting out. Next year, I'm doing Germany and Prague. I'm doing Egypt in February. And I'm going to be going to the UK for an event. So I'm going to be out traveling and seeing a lot this year. And I'd love for people to come on out and then keep up with me on my podcast. They can listen wherever they listen to podcasts, to the Paranormal 60, or you can go to my YouTube Paranormal 60 channel and watch the videos that we do there.
Yeah, great content. Thank you once again.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. Stay safe.
Stay safe.